In December 2019, Heidi Broussard and her newborn daughter Margot vanished without a trace from their Austin, Texas home. As the frantic search unfolded, a shocking revelation emerged. The prime suspect was Heidi's lifelong friend, Magen Firamuska, who had been secretly plotting a sinister deception. This is the chilling story of trust shattered and a friendship that turned fatal. Friendship is built on trust, a belief that the person standing beside you has your best interests at heart. But what happens when that trust is nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion? This is the story of Heidi Broussard and Magen Firamuska, two women whose friendship spanned over 20 years until one of them committed the ultimate betrayal. Heidi Broussard was a devoted mother, a loving partner, and a woman full of life. Born in Louisiana, she later moved to Texas, where she built a beautiful life with her fiancé, Shane Carey, and their children. She had a bubbly, warm personality, the kind of person who could make friends with anyone. To those who knew her, Heidi was genuine, kind-hearted, and trusting, perhaps too trusting. Then there was Magen Firamuska, Heidi's closest friend since childhood. The two met as pre-teens at a church camp in Louisiana and instantly became inseparable. They grew up together, shared secrets, and celebrated each other's milestones. Magen was more than just a friend. She was family. For over 2 decades, their friendship remained strong. Even as they entered adulthood, navigated relationships, and pursued different paths in life, they always found their way back to each other. In 2019, Heidi and Magen shared what should have been the most beautiful experience together. They were both expecting babies at the same time, or at least, that's what Heidi believed. Throughout her pregnancy, Heidi excitedly talked about raising their babies together, sharing parenting tips, and supporting each other as new mothers. She never once questioned Magen's pregnancy. After all, why would she? This was her best friend, her sister in everything but blood. But behind closed doors, Magen Firamuska was living a lie. For months, she had been deceiving everyone around her, stuffing her clothes, faking morning sickness, and manipulating those closest to her into believing she was carrying a child. Why? Because Magen had a plan. And that plan would lead to a horrifying crime that no one could have ever imagined. As Heidi celebrated the birth of her beautiful daughter, Margot, on November 26, 2019, she had no idea that her best friend, the person she had trusted for over 20 years, was already plotting to take her place. Just 2 weeks later, on a seemingly normal December morning, Heidi Broussard would step out of her apartment for the last time, and the events that would follow would reveal a twisted, unthinkable betrayal, one that would leave a family shattered and a community in shock. On the morning of December 12, 2019, Heidi Broussard woke up to what should have been just another ordinary day. Her newborn daughter, Margot, was only 3 weeks old, and despite the exhaustion of new motherhood, Heidi was glowing with happiness. That morning she got ready, placed Margot in her car seat, and left their Austin, Texas apartment to take her 6-year-old son, Silas, to school. She arrived at Cowan Elementary School just before 7:30 a.m., as captured by surveillance cameras. Heidi, holding her newborn in her arms, greeted familiar faces, exchanged smiles, and then left, completely unaware that this would be the last time anyone outside her home would see her alive. What happened next remains a chilling mystery, but what we do know is that Heidi and Margot never returned home. When her fiancé, Shane Carey, got home later that afternoon, the apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Heidi's car was parked outside, her belongings were inside, and yet she was gone. Her wallet, her ID, Margot's diaper bag, all still there. But no Heidi, no Margot. Shane, initially puzzled, tried calling her phone. It went straight to voicemail. He figured she might have gone to run errands or visit a friend, but as the hours passed, a gnawing feeling of unease set in. This wasn't like Heidi. She wasn't the type to just disappear without telling anyone. He called friends, family, anyone who might have seen her. But no one had. By evening, the unease had turned into full-blown panic. Shane dialed 911, his voice frantic as he reported his fiancée and newborn missing. Police arrived at the apartment, searching for any clues, but there were no signs of a struggle, no forced entry, no blood. Nothing seemed out of place, except for the fact that a mother and her child had vanished into thin air. Authorities moved quickly. An official missing persons report was filed, and within 24 hours, news of Heidi and Margot's disappearance spread like wildfire across Austin. Flyers went up, friends and family took to social media pleading for any information. Local news stations broadcasted their pictures, urging anyone who had seen them to come forward. The community, shaken and desperate for answers, joined in the search. Among those most vocal in their concern was Megan Firamuska, Heidi's longtime best friend. Megan and Heidi had been close for years, practically inseparable. They had shared their pregnancies together, even discussing baby names and due dates. Megan had told everyone she was expecting a baby of her own. Now, in Heidi's absence, Megan seemed devastated. She told reporters how much she loved Heidi, how she couldn't believe this was happening. When a mother and her newborn vanish without a trace, the first hours are crucial. In Austin, Texas, authorities scrambled to find 33-year-old Heidi Broussard and her baby, Margot. But as search teams scoured neighborhoods, desperate to bring them home, investigators began noticing something unsettling. Small inconsistencies, strange behaviors, and a friend who seemed a little too involved. The Austin Police Department, joined by the FBI and Texas Rangers, worked tirelessly. They combed through surveillance footage, analyzed cell phone pings, and conducted dozens of interviews with friends, family, and even strangers who might have seen something. The media covered the story relentlessly, urging the public to call in tips. But with each passing day, hope dimmed. Where could a mother and her infant go without a single trace? And then a crucial lead surfaced, one that turned this case from a missing persons investigation into something far darker. Investigators revisited an early interview with Megan Firamuska, Heidi's longtime best friend, a woman who had been by her side through every stage of her pregnancy. Megan had been visibly emotional when speaking with reporters and authorities, pleading for Heidi's safe return. But something was off. When detectives reviewed phone records, they found a shocking inconsistency. Heidi's phone had last pinged near Megan's home in Houston, nearly 150 miles from where she was last seen in Austin. Suspicion intensified. Megan claimed she had given birth just days before Heidi's disappearance. She told friends and even her boyfriend that she had a new baby, but strangely, no one had seen her pregnant in recent weeks. The pieces of the puzzle weren't fitting together. Detectives dug deeper, obtaining search warrants for Megan's home and car, and when they arrived at her residence on December 19, 2019, the case took a horrifying turn. Parked outside was a car eerily familiar to investigators, one matching the description of Heidi's vehicle. As they pried open the trunk, a nightmare unfolded. Inside, they found a body. It was Heidi Broussard. The betrayal was incomprehensible. The friend Heidi had trusted with her life had been the very person who ended it. But the most chilling part? Inside Megan's home, unharmed and oblivious to the horror surrounding her, was Margot. The baby Megan had stolen to pass off as her own. What investigators would uncover next would reveal an even more sinister plot, one that had been in motion for months. A friendship built on trust had turned into an obsession, and that obsession led to cold-blooded murder. Megan Firamuska had spent months weaving an elaborate lie, one that would ultimately end in murder. She had told everyone she was pregnant, her belly growing alongside her best friend, Heidi Broussard, who was genuinely expecting. They had been inseparable for over a decade, celebrating milestones together, sharing secrets, and navigating life's twists and turns. But what no one knew was that Megan wasn't carrying a child at all, and she was willing to kill to keep up the illusion. In the days leading up to Heidi's murder, Megan's deception began to spiral out of control. She wasn't just pretending to be pregnant. She was crafting an entire new life, one that revolved around a stolen baby. She decorated a nursery, told her boyfriend Christopher Green that she was about to give birth, and even faked contractions to sell the story. But there was one problem. She needed a baby, and not just any baby. She had set her sights on Heidi's newborn daughter, Margot. On December 12, 2019, the day started like any other for Heidi. She had just dropped off her older son at school and returned home with Margot, only a few weeks old, blissfully unaware that her closest friend had been planning her murder for months. Megan arrived at Heidi's apartment that morning under the pretense of celebrating the baby's arrival. But what was supposed to be a joyful visit soon turned into a nightmare. Inside Heidi's apartment, something went terribly wrong. Investigators believe that as Heidi turned her back, Magen struck. Using a dog leash, she strangled Heidi with calculated precision, cutting off her air supply until she fell lifeless to the floor. This wasn't an act of impulse, it was premeditated, deliberate. She then stuffed Heidi's body into the trunk of her own car, parked just outside, all while baby Margot lay unaware in the same apartment where her mother had just been murdered. It was February 2023 when Magen Firamuska finally stood before a Travis County judge, facing the devastating consequences of her heinous actions. After more than 3 years of investigation, shocking discoveries, and a public trial that gripped the nation, this was the moment that would bring at least some form of justice to Heidi Broussard's grieving family. But it wasn't the closure they had hoped for, only a painful reminder of the monstrous betrayal that had led to the loss of their daughter, mother, and friend. Firamuska, who had once been a trusted friend of Heidi, pleaded guilty to first-degree murder, admitting to strangling Heidi in a violent act of deception. She also admitted to the kidnapping of little Margot, a baby she had no right to, and then attempting to pass off as her own, fabricating an entire pregnancy for months while secretly plotting this unthinkable crime. It was a moment of truth that shocked everyone in the courtroom, especially considering the coldness of her action. By agreeing to the plea deal, Magen Firamuska avoided a potentially drawn-out trial, but at a great cost. She now faced a sentence of 55 years in prison. The agreement ensured that she would forgo any future appeal and immediately accept responsibility for her role in the deaths of her friend and the trauma inflicted on an innocent child. It was a resolution that brought some comfort to the Broussard family, who had endured years of anguish over the tragic events that had forever changed their lives. During the legal proceedings, a powerful statement was made by Judge Selena Alvarenga. She looked directly at Firamuska and said, "There is no sentence that could ever undo the pain that you've caused. A life was lost, a family torn apart, and a community left in disbelief." The words cut deep, acknowledging that no matter the length of the sentence, the void left in the hearts of Heidi's family could never be filled. As the courtroom proceedings continued, a somber silence fell over Heidi's mother, Tammy Broussard, who had attended the hearing. With tears in her eyes, she addressed the court, describing the love and warmth her daughter had brought into her life and the lives of everyone who knew her. She spoke of the unimaginable pain of losing a daughter in such a violent and senseless way. "I'll never hold her again," she said quietly, the weight of the loss pressing down on every word. The audience could feel the raw grief emanating from her, and it was a stark reminder that no matter the legal outcome, the pain of this loss was everlasting. Though Magen Firamuska's guilty plea brought a sense of finality to the case, it was clear that justice could never truly erase the deep scars left behind. Heidi's family would forever carry the burden of her untimely death, and Margot, who would grow up without the mother who loved her, would have to bear the heavy weight of knowing her biological mother was the one who took that life away. The court case also drew attention to the eerie and twisted deception that Magen had carried out for months before the tragic event. Her friends, Heidi's family, even medical professionals, none suspected that the woman who was supposedly pregnant, who showed off a growing belly and attended baby showers, was faking it all. It wasn't just a story of murder. It was a chilling portrayal of a person willing to deceive everyone around her for something as disturbing as motherhood. And it was the type of betrayal that would haunt the Broussard family for years to come. This case will always serve as a haunting reminder of how a close friend, someone trusted and loved, can hide a dark, twisted side that leads to unimaginable acts. It is a story of a woman who had everything, yet chose to destroy the very bonds that were supposed to support her. And as the gavel came down in February 2023, sealing Magen Firamuska's fate for the next 55 years, it didn't bring back Heidi or heal the wounds of Margot. It only confirmed that, in the end, justice was a necessary but incomplete answer to a crime that will forever echo in the hearts of those left behind. The aftermath of Heidi Broussard's murder was nothing short of a living nightmare for her family, friends, and the entire community. As the tragic details unfolded, those closest to Heidi were forced to come to terms with the most unimaginable betrayal. A friend they trusted for years, someone who shared in their happiest moments, had now stolen the most precious thing in their lives, the life of a mother and the innocence of a child. For Heidi's family, the pain of losing her was compounded by the horror of knowing that it wasn't some faceless stranger who had taken her life. It was someone they had invited into their home, someone they thought they knew. Heidi's parents, who had always treated Megan as a part of the family, struggled to comprehend the betrayal. Her mother, who had lovingly watched Megan grow close to Heidi over the years, recalled how she had even comforted Megan when she experienced personal difficulties, but now that trust felt like a cruel joke. Heidi's father, on the other hand, was left to wrestle with the anger of knowing that his daughter had died in the hands of someone who pretended to be a close friend. The grief was unbearable, but mixed with it was a searing rage. A rage that could never fully be vented because no words could ever fully convey the depth of this treachery. The community of Austin, Texas was equally shaken. They had watched as Heidi's family fought desperately to find her, as strangers and loved ones scoured the streets and shared flyers in the hopes of a miracle. When the truth came to light, it felt as though the very fabric of trust had been torn apart. Heidi was a well-loved woman, someone who was adored by those who knew her. And no one could understand how someone could be so evil in their planning, especially when the motive seemed so bizarre. What made this case all the more heart-wrenching was the presence of baby Margot. The infant who had been ripped from her mother's arms was found safe, but the trauma she would carry in her young life was undeniable. In a case that was so full of betrayal, the one silver lining was that Margot was unharmed physically. Yet, how could anyone ever quantify the emotional scars she would carry? Megan had been pretending to be pregnant, fooling everyone, including Heidi. She'd gone to great lengths to create a fake life, a life she used to justify her crime and to manipulate those around her. It was unfathomable that someone could go so far as to strangle her supposed best friend to take her child, only to then pose as the mother. Megan's arrest was one thing, but the sheer magnitude of what had been taken was impossible to fully grasp. Heidi's life, taken in a moment of blind rage, and Margot's future forever changed, were the ultimate cost of this crime. In the wake of this devastating loss, Heidi's family and friends came together to support each other through the unbearable grief. But the story of the baby who had been kidnapped by her mother's murderer didn't just end with the arrest. There would be no simple return to normalcy. Baby Margot would be raised without her mother, a gaping hole in her life that no one could fill. She was taken from her mother, and though she would eventually return to the loving arms of her father, the pain of that separation could never be fully erased. In the years to come, Margot would have to carry this story, her story, as part of her life. A young girl who never had the chance to know her mother, whose life would forever be marked by that loss. The love and support of her father and the extended family, however, would provide a foundation for her to build her future. But this tragedy would cast a shadow over everything. As for Megan Fieramusca, her sentencing brought a sense of justice, but it would never bring closure to Heidi's family. Megan was convicted in 2023, pled guilty to capital murder and kidnapping, and was sentenced to 55 years in prison. In her final moments in court, Megan seemed to show no remorse, no real recognition of the pain she had caused. It was a cold, calculated crime that she had carried out without blinking, as though she was playing a twisted game with no understanding of the real lives she was shattering. Heidi's family, though, still spoke of their daughter with love, as they remembered her as a kind-hearted soul, a devoted mother, and a loyal friend, qualities Megan could never possess. The media attention surrounding the case only amplified the trauma. The world watched as this seemingly perfect friendship collapsed into an unforgivable act of violence. Interviews with detectives, family members, and even Megan's past associates painted a portrait of a woman who was manipulative, desperate, and cold. For those who had known her for years, this revelation was an impossibility to process. How had they missed the warning signs? The public reaction was one of outrage and disbelief. A deep sense of betrayal permeated every aspect of the case. The questions were endless. How could Megan deceive everyone around her for so long? How could she pretend to be pregnant and fool Heidi? How could someone with such intimate knowledge of another person, their family, and their vulnerabilities become capable of such violence? These are the kinds of questions that haunt the people who knew Heidi and Megan and the rest of the world that has followed this story. The case of Heidi Broussard and Megan Fieramusca will never be forgotten. It stands as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lie behind a smile, behind a friendship, and behind the most trusted relationships. When trust is broken, it's not just the life lost that is felt. It's a ripple that touches everyone in its wake. Though justice was served in the courtroom, the emotional scars for both Heidi's family and the community remain. Megan's cold-hearted crime changed the lives of everyone involved, and no sentence, no amount of time behind bars can ever bring back what was stolen that fateful December. This is a story of trust shattered, lives lost, and the horrific lengths one person will go to when driven by envy and deceit. It serves as a stark reminder that sometimes the people closest to us are the ones capable of the darkest actions. If this case has left you with questions, or if you believe there are still mysteries left to uncover, make sure to share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more shocking real-life stories. And as always, remember, nothing is ever truly what it seems.